Hi, my name is Jenna. I'm a customer success manager here at ClickLearn, and I'm really happy that you are joining my session today. We are going to talk about a very exciting topic, and that is updating and translating your content inside of ClickLearn using our built-in functionality for it. I'm really looking forward to doing a bit of a deep dive on this. So we're going to talk about the replay functionality, I guess at a conceptual level, just understanding how it works. Then we are going to dive into, of course, a live demo. And then we're going to talk about, I guess, all the information that replay uses so you can understand better the common pitfalls. And we're going to talk about like what to do if and when you run into those as well. So going to be a bit of a jam-packed session today, but I hope that you get a lot out of it. So first, what is this functionality that allows us to, update our content, recapture the screenshots, have it translated into different languages, and it's called replay. So basically, anyone who has made a recording in ClickLearn before, you've seen the output, the documentation it creates. You probably know that it is capturing screenshots when you record. What you might not know is that it is capturing as well the technical name or the backend name, object ID of the field that you click on. And that's why if you've ever had a session with me or with any of my colleagues here, we say a lot like to wait for the green rectangle, make sure that you don't skip steps in your recording. And that's all because of course, we want the screenshots to be great, but we also really want to make sure that for every click you make, the backend name of that field, the object ID, is detected by our system as well. Because that is the foundation of a lot of things in our tool that happen behind the scenes, and allow it to work smoothly for things like replay. Yeah, so just like the screenshots guide your colleagues and yourself in the tool, and of course the written instructions, the backend name allows our tool to understand what you've done or what you're doing and then be able to replicate it, even if like the languages have changed or the graphical location. And an analogy that like seems to stick for me, and I hope will help some of you or all of you, is thinking about like giving directions. So if you're going to give someone directions here, there's a lot of ways that you can give directions, and they can be, very easy to follow. And they can also be, I don't know if you've gotten directions before that were just like, turn right at this spot, you'll know it when you see it. And you're like, different quality out there. So what we want to talk about is having, giving really good directions. And I'm saying directions, but I also mean, it's my analogy for like giving really good process instructions. So if I just open up, just to illustrate my point here, let's say, so we're in the Copenhagen ClickLearn office, and if I want to give instructions to my colleagues how to get to Tivoli, or maybe to a visitor, there's a lot of ways you can do it. You can give a map, just draw a line. They'll probably figure it out. But really good directions are going to, have these street names here, how many meters away it is to make that turn. And all of that combined is going to be very easy to follow. So thinking about it from the perspective of a person, that's great. They're going to be able to see what we have on the map, see the street names, follow it, perfect. But if you think about from the perspective of, let's say, like a robot or a very simple one, it is going to need precise instructions. So, turning on this specific street at this point, how many meters away, and that's kind of like, the deeper level. So if you think about like the street names as object IDs or something like that, they don't change very often. It's always going to be replicable and easy to follow. Yeah, just to kind of build like I guess the idea that there's different layers to instructions. But we'll kind of touch back on that as we move ahead. Just wanted to kind of paint that picture for you, and just so you have an idea of like there's more behind the scenes when you make a recording, and the more information we have, the easier it is for these functionalities to be of use to you in a really meaningful way that will save you a lot of time. Um, yeah. So just restating how replay operates, it's just looking for a sequence of events from object ID to object ID to be able to recapture everything that you have done in your original recording. So following good recording practices is going to give you a much better experience with replay. If replay runs into an issue, it can't find the field it's looking for, it's going to pause and ask you for help. And we are going to touch on that later. So how you can actually assist the replay and keep moving ahead. And yeah, just give directions for how to proceed, basically. So what I'm going to do, we've talked a bit at a conceptual level, but let's actually see replay in action here to kind of better illustrate my points. So what I'm going to do is open up my dynamics environment here. And I'm just going to put this back into English for my sake, but we will do a multi-language replay translation just so we can see that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a simple recording. Let's just say add a contact. I'm going to do it in English. And I just give this a second to load here. All right. So I'm going to start recording. I'm following my good practices. So waiting for the green rectangle to appear. It's around the field as I wish, and I'm making my click. So I'm getting that screenshot. I'm also picking up the backend ID. So ClickLearn knows that I clicked on the field new, or clicked on contacts. And if I change my environment over to German or any other language, it's still going to be able to repeat what I've done and get those screenshots. So let's just add a few points in here. All right. And then that's good for me. I'm going to go ahead and say save and close. And then I'm going to stop my recording. And if we just open it up here, just to take a peek what we have. So this looks good. Got all my clicks in here. I'm not going to dive into everything you can do in the editor. That's for another session. But we have our steps, and if I were to look at another language, I haven't done anything to this yet. So it's saying I need to do a replay. Before I do a replay for translation purpose, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look in the system at this contact I just created. And because I unfortunately can't control what Microsoft does, I can't make them like push out a new update right now. But what I can do is like change the layout of our form. So let me just try one of these here. So same information, but this, form is much more simplified. So the first name field and the last name field have changed location. I think I switched it from, contact for interactive experience. Yes, so we had a lot of different fields here, a lot of information, and we are just going to leave it in this simplified form. So I'm going to replay it, and you can watch how it's still going to recapture those screenshots, even though, things look graphically a bit different. So I'm just going to go ahead here and say replay from this point. And if you've never done a replay before, it's preloaded with the recording I just made, and I'm just asking it to recapture my steps. So I know nothing has really changed too much since I just made the recording a second ago, but that form entry is different, but that doesn't matter because it's going to be on its own looking for the object IDs and that only. So it should be able to find what I have done here. Perfect. So of course, we ran into a pop-up there that my contact already existed, but that's no problem. So we saw it on those form entries, pick up the two fields, and to show you what this looks like now. So even though they moved location, we can see that it wasn't, any problem for the tool. It was still able to replicate that process. So I hope that that makes sense. I'm just trying to show that, like, even though these fields graphically move location, the object ID, of course, did not change, and thus the replay functionality was still able to find it and recapture those screenshots. So now I'll do like a different example here. So let's say I am switching my environment over to German. So we can really notice a difference in the screenshots because now we can, of course, see that each field will be different. And then we can, of course, take a look. So right now, I've asked for German images, but it knows I haven't replayed it yet. So we'll have a little bit of a before and after comparison here. All right, so replay, I'm switching the language to German here. And as you saw, I have kind of restaged my environment in German. Looks good. So I'm ready to start my replay. We're going to see that bar loadout on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, and we can see it's like halfway there. So the text that is pre-templated is translated, and then the UI buttons are still in English until we run our replay. And then I didn't point this out last time, but of course, whilst the replay is running, it's running on your real user interface. So it's just a bit of a like hands-off situation. Just watch it go. And if it needs help, it will, of course, ask you. Yeah, so now we have new language, and this form is still different from the original recording as well, but it's able to move ahead. And then when this is done, we can take a look at the completed instruction just so you can see those different screenshots. So let's just take a quick look in the preview here. So English still the same. Now we've replayed German and we have, full German translation. So those are two really common examples. We've talked about if an update had happened, some buttons moved location graphically, things look different. And then we've just talked about translation purposes. So what I'm going to do is just open back up my PowerPoint here. Yeah, so these are kind of the main scenarios we might see someone run a replay. It could also be the case that you just want to recapture images. I know it's happened to me before that I've been making recordings and I realized like halfway through that I had like a notification in the corner the whole time. You might just want to refresh the images so that you have updated screenshots. Or maybe you changed the company colors in the portal in the system and you want it to be reflected. Yeah, so these are kind of the primary reasons people will run a replay. What we're going to talk about now are the common pitfalls. And I think this is a really important topic because replay does have a learning curve to it. And if you're aware of these from the get-go, it will, make that learning curve much shorter, and your time to like finding value in that functionality will be a lot faster. So the common things are data being missing. So let's just, if we go back to my example here. Okay. If we go back to my example here, if I had a recording where I needed to click on the customer Jenna demo and that wasn't there anymore, if that data was like now missing, it's going to be looking for something that it can't quite find here. We can kind of simulate that example. So I'm just going to get rid of 2 of these, and maybe I'll like enrich this customer a little bit more with some data and maybe an email. Okay. So now we have a contact that has a few data points here. We've got a name, first and last, we've got an email, and then we have a phone number. So what I'm going to do, just go back to my PowerPoint here. So if that data was part of a recording and then it went missing or it changed, it can not know where it's supposed to be clicking. The other issue, which again we can simulate, if the recording is low quality, it's going to have a hard time to move ahead. Or if it's really, really old. So if we go back to like the map and the street names, of course, object IDs or street names for that reference change over time. Long amount of time, these things will change and eventually need to be updated. That can happen too. And in that case, you'll just need to recapture fields from time to time. But if you're picking up a recording from years and years ago, you might find that you're having to re-record so many steps that it might feel like, does replay even work? So you might not have the most utility out of the functionality if you're replaying on something that's extremely old in documentation senses. So let's talk about some of these in action now. All right, so first we can talk about like, what if we had a low quality recording? So for example here, let's say that I made this recording, but I skipped a few steps because I'm like so familiar with the system that I just moved too quickly or whatever. So I just deleted my process is about adding a new contact, but I deleted the button new. So we can just see what happens when I try to replay it. And I think just for my sake, I'm gonna quickly put this back into English. Here we go. All right. So let's have our replay run into a little problem here. So I'll just let that go. So what it will do is, because I deleted that step where I clicked on new, it's immediately looking, the next, chain of events for it is it's looking for the object ID for the field that says first name. So that's where I entered, my own name. And of course it's not finding it because that is not available on the screen. We went from A to B to D, and it doesn't know how to get there because C is missing. And I'll show you how you can play around with the settings of the replay speed. Right now, I think it gives it like 3 attempts, so it's trying and reloading. And eventually, this bar will come up on the right-hand side. It's telling me that, it can't find what it's looking for. If I look in this like, alarming message here, it's telling me what it wants. It's looking for this field. But of course, we can't see that here. So we have a few options what we can do. I know in this case that there's a missing sequence in my chain of events, so I need to re-record that step or to record it to add it in. So I clicked record. I'm going to press my red button here and I am going to grab that new step, that missing piece of my puzzle, like so. And that's all I want. So I just grabbed that one step, stop recording, and it's going to ask me if I want to replace the step. I might do that if, I thought I had it there and maybe the object ID changed. But in this case, I know that was just fully skipped. So I'm going to insert it, add it into my process. And then it can try again now. Because, of course, now that we've included that step, that first name field is there for us. All right, so it should finish this off and open up our system here. Perfect. So from here, we can see, it's not going to look too different from before, but what we have done is we have repaired our recording and we've added in that new step and, continued on with our replay. What I'm going to do now is talk about the data layer to it. So let's go ahead and create a new recording here and just say, maybe I want to view a contact, something simple. And I'm going to press my handy pause button here and fix my environment a bit. All right. And I'm actually going to just delete that one because I just want to have that like enriched contact there with some data. So I'm going to do a really similar process, but I'm just going to pick the contact that we've made together here, like so. And yeah, I'll just do one click on this page. So stop recording. And I'm going to open this up in the editor and we can take a look at the data view here. All right, so we have a new short little recording here. I'm going to look at the data editor and we can see it's actually captured that entire line of data. So if we look back at my contacts form, it is looking for, a really precise match here. So we can see that it's captured the name, the email, and the business phone. And the way that it is by default right now is that it's looking for that perfect match. So if I made this recording and then a year later I go to replay it because I want it in another language or because the system has changed, right now, out of how it is, it's looking for that exact match. So if my system no longer has this contact here, or it has maybe this contact, but the phone number changed, right now, it will stop at that point and say, like, where is Jenna demo with this email and this exact phone number? But luckily, you can, of course, change that. So we have some settings here where you could say, I don't care what contact you actually pick, just choose whatever's in row number 1 and move ahead. Or, if you want it to be something specific, but that's not there anymore, you can always change it. So you could say maybe the customer Jenna demo doesn't exist anymore and you want it to look for another contact. You can do that. So you can change the information. You can make it less specific. So you're like, as long as it matches that name. What I'll do now is leave it with like the full specificity, and I'm going to come in here and just cancel that. I'm going to edit this contact just to simulate it like changing. So I just put some new phone number in here and mess up my email. My email is jha@clicklearn.com, not .dk in case you are trying to reach out to me after this webinar. What I'm going to do is, I'll save my changes, of course. I'm going to replay this, and we should run into another problem because now it's looking for the old data, and I have just gone into the system and, changed it. So let's start replaying here, and we'll run into like another mistake. So now it's looking for the original like phone number I entered, and I guess the original email too. So when it gets to that, even though like to me as a person, I would of course know what I should click on here, but replay is looking for not only that object ID to match, it's looking for that specific, email and phone number too, because that's what I've told it to do. So it's still going to go through its waiting period. It's looking, but it's not going to find it. And I know that that can be an extremely frustrating experience to watch. If you're sitting here and like watching your replays, you're like, why can't it find it? So I hope if you've ever experienced that this maybe is illuminating. So here it's telling me, this is actually what it's looking for. And I'm like, to me, it's, it's right there. And then what you can do is actually come in here and change the data. So I can say, this is what it is looking for. So I can say, just use this instead. Or in my advanced options, I could come in and like say, I don't care about a precise match. I just need that name. And then it's going to be able to proceed and move ahead like so. So that should be the end of that replay. ClickLearn will open back up. And I know it's a simple example here, but I hope that that's illustrated like low quality when we like deleted a part of our process that was important. And then also the data changing or being missing. Like if I were just to fully delete that contact, then I would, need to put in either restage the environment with that information or just use some of the information and change it in the data editor. So I know this is pretty fast and I've covered a lot kind of quickly, but I hope that that illustrates some of the common pitfalls that you might experience and, how to overcome them. And of course, our support team, our whole like customer team here, we're here to help. So if you ever are feeling like replay is not working properly for you, we're always here to help and run through that as well. So we are cutting, we're actually a little bit over time here, so I'm going to wrap this up with a few tips. If you're new to the functionality, it's great to start small. So just if you're learning it, maybe make a short recording like I've done, 10-15 steps, get an idea of what it's doing. If you run into some of those pitfalls, it's easier to fix it when it's a fresh recording and it's short, just to get the hang of it. One nice thing too I didn't touch on yet that I think is worth a quick shout out. If you want to test the replayability of your content, I really think a great way to do that is running our live assistant. Maybe it's not the most intuitive thing, but the live assistant actually runs on the same premise. So it's looking for that object ID. So if the live assistant runs smoothly through your process, replay is also going to have a totally fine time with it as well. And the reason that this is a great way to test it out is just because it's not taking those screenshots again. I think it just feels a little bit a way to add like some predictability into it. It feels like a little easier way to test it than actually like replaying your content. So that's just a fun tip. You obviously don't have to do that, but I like to tell people. Replaying on the same environment you recorded on if and when possible. I know that's not always possible, but but if you're doing it for like translation purposes, one after another, then that can be easier. Checking out your data in the data editor before you replay, that can help you to like save time. If you know like, okay, it's looking for this specific customer that's not in the system anymore, you can get ahead of that. Of course, you can fix it while you're in the flow with the replay too, but it can be faster before you are into the replay. And then, of course, what many people can find helpful once you are using replay, there is a way to change the speed here. So like as you saw, mine kind of looked for maybe 15, 20 seconds. I can say like if it can't find a field, only try once, or I can say more times. You can adjust the overall speed. So you can find what works best for you and like your system. Um, yeah, so playing around with that can also improve the overall experience, just to kind of save time and find a rhythm that works for you if you're finding it's like too fast or too slow. And of course, as I said, just reach out to us if you're having any difficulties with it, and we will be so happy to look into it with you. Um, and I have gone a bit over time, so yeah, thank you so much for joining my session, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the masterclass. Thank you.